She is the best thing I've ever seen. 7 words. That's all it took for Adrian Vale to destroy the carefully constructed walls around his billion-dollar life. 7 words sent in a moment of weakness after a blind date his so-called friend set up as a joke. But Vivienne Laurent wasn't laughing. She was watching. And when a fabricated scandal threatened to strip him of everything, his company, his daughter, his reputation, Adrian learned the brutal truth. The woman he'd fallen for was either his salvation or his destruction. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit like and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this journey goes. The conference room on the 43rd floor smelled like leather and lies. Adrian Vale sat at the head of the table, surrounded by 12 board members who wouldn't meet his eyes. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind him, Chicago sprawled in every direction. A city he'd conquered by 32, built an empire inside, and now might lose in the span of a single meeting. "We need to discuss the optics," Gerald Chen said, shuffling papers he wasn't actually reading. The CFO had worked with Adrian for 6 years. They'd celebrated promotions together, weathered market crashes, built something real. Now Gerald stared at the table like it held answers. Optics. Adrian let the word hang there. Is that what we're calling evidence now? You know what I mean, Gerald finally looked up. The screenshots are everywhere. Twitter, LinkedIn, the goddamn Wall Street Journal. Investors are spooked. We've lost $4 million in market cap since Monday. Because of fabricated messages. Adrian's voice stayed level, but his hands gripped the armrests hard enough to hurt. Altered screenshots that any forensic analyst could disprove in 20 minutes. Then let's get analysts. This from Rebecca Tout, the head of operations. At least she sounded uncertain instead of convinced. Hire the best firm. Clear this up. We are hiring them, Adrian said, but that takes time, and apparently time is something we don't have. The silence that followed felt like verdict and sentence combined. Marcus Webb cleared his throat. The oldest board member, the one who'd mentored Adrian when he was 24 and stupid enough to think hard work alone could change the world. Adrian, nobody here thinks you did what they're saying, but the company needs protection, just until the investigation concludes. Protection from me. Adrian said it flat, not a question. Temporary leave, paid, obviously. You'd retain all equity, all voting rights. We bring in an interim CEO, someone clean, let the investigators do their work. 2 months, maybe 3. Then you come back, and this is forgotten. Nothing is ever forgotten. Adrian stood, buttoning his suit jacket with fingers that wanted to shake but wouldn't. Not here, not in front of them. You want me to step aside from the company I built because my ex-girlfriend got creative with Photoshop? We want you to let us handle this. Marcus stood too, shorter than Adrian by half a foot, but carrying weight that had nothing to do with height. You've got Lily to think about. The custody hearing is in 6 weeks. You really want to walk into family court as the CEO fighting sexual harassment accusations? The name of his daughter hit different than the rest. Adrian felt something crack behind his sternum, small and sharp. This is a leave of absence, not a termination, Gerald added, gentler now. We're trying to protect you. By asking me to abandon everything I've built. By asking you to be smart. Rebecca looked pained. Come on, Adrian, you know how this works. Perception becomes reality faster than truth ever catches up. We need separation between you and the company until reality wins. Adrian looked at each of them, people he'd hired, promoted, trusted, people who'd accepted his Christmas bonuses and laughed at his jokes, and showed up to his wife's funeral 4 years ago with flowers and sympathy cards. Now they sat in his conference room and politely asked him to disappear. I'll have my attorney review the terms, he said finally. You'll have my answer by end of business. He walked out before anyone could respond, past the assistants pretending not to stare, past the VP of marketing who suddenly found her phone fascinating, past the security desk where Tony had worked for 8 years and now couldn't look at him. The elevator ride down 43 floors took 90 seconds. Adrian counted everyone. His driver waited at the curb, engine running. Home, Mr. Vale? Yeah. Adrian climbed into the back seat and pulled out his phone. 17 missed calls, 42 emails, 3 voicemails from his lawyer, all marked urgent. 1 text from Vivienne Laurent. Are you okay? He'd met her 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks, and somehow she'd become the only person asking that question like she actually wanted the answer. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. What could he say? That his company was forcing him out? That the accusations were lies, but the damage was real? That he was terrified of losing custody of his daughter because someone decided to burn his life down? He typed, "No, but I will be." Sent it before he could reconsider. Her response came immediately. "Where are you?" "Heading home. Don't. Come to my place. I'll send the address." Adrian stared at the message. They'd had dinner 4 times, coffee twice, one long walk through Millennium Park, where they'd talked until the lights came on. He knew she was brilliant with money, ruthless in boardrooms, and careful about letting anyone close. He knew she drank whiskey neat and hated small talk, and had a scar on her left hand she never explained. He didn't know her well enough to fall apart in her living room. "Change of plans?" he told his driver, reading off the address she'd sent. Lincoln Park. Vivienne's building looked like it cost more per month than most people's mortgages. The doorman recognized Adrian from business news, badly hidden recognition in his eyes, but he stayed professional and called up. "Ms. Laurent says to send you up. 47th floor, penthouse 3. Adrian rode another elevator, watched another city shrink below him. The doors opened directly into her foyer. White marble, abstract art that probably cost 6 figures, floor-to-ceiling windows facing the lake. Vivienne stood in the center of it all, barefoot in black pants and a cream sweater, hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked nothing like the woman who'd sat across from him at their first dinner, armor-plated in designer clothes and calculated indifference. "You look like hell," she said. "Thanks. You look annoyingly perfect." "I wasn't expecting company." She gestured toward the living room. "Sit. I'll get drinks." Adrian sank onto a couch that probably cost more than his first car. Everything in the apartment screamed money, but the comfortable kind. Wealth that didn't need to prove anything. Books stacked on the coffee table, a laptop half closed on the side chair, reading glasses abandoned on top of a financial report. Vivienne returned with 2 glasses and a bottle of whiskey he recognized as the same brand they'd shared at dinner. She poured 3 fingers each, handed him one, sat on the opposite end of the couch. "Tell me," she said. So he did. Started with the board meeting and worked backward. The screenshots that appeared Sunday night, accusations from his ex-girlfriend claiming he'd abused his authority, pressured her, made her career dependent on staying silent. Detailed lies mixed with just enough truth to sound plausible. Messages he'd never sent, conversations that never happened. "Why would she do this?" Vivienne asked. "Because I ended it. Because she wanted more and I couldn't give it. Because—" Adrian stopped, drank, started again. "Because I'm an easy target right now. Single father, dead wife, billion-dollar company. If the accusations stick, she gets a settlement. If they don't, she still gets to watch me suffer." "You think that's all this is? Revenge?" "What else would it be?" Vivienne studied him over the rim of her glass. "Money. Your company's market cap dropped $4 million today. That's not random. Someone's profiting from this." Adrian hadn't considered that angle. He'd been too busy feeling betrayed to think about who might benefit from the chaos. "The board put you on leave?" Vivienne asked. "They recommended it, strongly. And you said?" "That my lawyer would review the terms." "But you're going to accept." It wasn't a question. Adrian nodded anyway. "Smart," Vivienne said. "Fighting it now makes you look defensive. Taking the leave shows confidence in the truth. Or it looks like I'm running. Only to people who don't matter." She refilled both glasses without asking. "The people who matter know you're protecting your daughter." "Lily, Jesus." Adrian set down his drink before he could spill it. "She's going to hear about this. Kids at school, their parents. She's 8 years old, and she's going to hear people say her father hurt women. So you tell her the truth first." Vivienne's voice stayed steady. "Age-appropriate version. Someone is lying about you. You're going to prove they're lying. Sometimes grown-ups do mean things when they're angry. That's not going to make sense to her. It doesn't have to make sense. It has to come from you before it comes from anyone else." Adrian looked at this woman, 30 years old, billionaire, barely knew him, sitting in her expensive apartment giving him parenting advice like she'd known Lily her whole life. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. Vivienne considered the question longer than he expected. "Because I've been the person everyone assumes is guilty before. Because I know what it's like when the truth doesn't matter as much as the story. She paused. And because I don't think you did it. You don't know that. Actually, I do. She pulled out her phone, opened a folder, handed it to him. I had someone look at the screenshots, see the timestamp metadata? 3 of them were created with editing software. The dates are embedded in the file properties. Whoever made these wasn't particularly good at covering their tracks. Adrian scrolled through the analysis, watching his ex-girlfriend's revenge plot fall apart in forensic detail. How did you get this? I know people who know things. Vivienne took her phone back. And before you ask, yes, this will hold up. The question is whether you want to use it now or save it for the right moment. What's the right moment? When it destroys her completely instead of just making you look innocent. Vivienne's smile had edges. You want vindication or you want justice? I want my life back. Those aren't the same thing. Adrian stood, walked to the windows. Lake Michigan stretched dark and endless, city lights reflecting off the surface like fallen stars. Somewhere out there, his daughter was at his sister's place, doing homework or watching television or asking questions about why Daddy had to work late again. I sent a text after our first date, he said, not turning around. To the friends who set us up. Told them you were the best thing I'd ever seen. Behind him, Vivienne went quiet. They thought it was hilarious, Adrian continued. Adrian Vale, caught off guard by a woman. They screenshotted it, sent it around, made jokes. I didn't care, I meant what I said. Why are you telling me this? Because 6 weeks ago, I thought the worst thing that could happen was looking stupid in front of my friends. Now I'm looking at losing everything that matters, and you're the only person who showed up. He turned. I don't know what we're doing here. I don't know if this is friendship or something else, or just 2 people who got set up as a joke and decided to prove everyone wrong. But I need you to know I'm grateful. Vivienne stood too, crossed the space between them. Up close, he could see she wasn't as composed as she pretended, something uncertain in her eyes, a tension in her shoulders. I'm not here out of pity, she said. I know. And I'm not interested in being your savior. I know that too. Good. She stepped back, creating distance that felt deliberate. Then let me be clear. I'm helping you because I choose to, not because you need it, not because I feel sorry for you, because I looked at the evidence and decided you're worth the effort. That's a hell of a compliment. It's the truth. Vivienne picked up her glass again. Now sit down and walk me through every conversation you had with your ex. Everything she might use against you. We're going to build a defense so airtight that when this goes to investigation, they'll laugh her out of the room. They worked until midnight. Adrian talked, Vivienne took notes, occasionally interrupting with questions that cut straight to the uncomfortable parts he wanted to skip. She didn't let him hide behind vague answers or comfortable lies. Every time he tried to soften something, make himself sound better, she called him on it. I wasn't always kind to her, he admitted around 11. Toward the end, she wanted commitment I couldn't give, wanted to meet Lily, be part of my life in ways I wasn't ready for. I should have ended it cleanly. Instead, I let it drag out, hoping she'd get tired and leave. That's not illegal, Vivienne said. It's just human. It was cruel. Yes, but cruelty isn't the same as harassment. She tapped her pen against the notepad. Anything physical? No, never. Anything that could be construed as professional pressure? We never worked together. Met at a charity event. Dated 6 months. I ended it 3 months ago. And she's doing this now because... Adrian shrugged. New girlfriend, maybe. Saw my picture with someone and decided to burn it all down? Vivienne's expression shifted, something almost amused. You don't have a new girlfriend. She doesn't know that. She's been following your social media? Probably. She was always checking my accounts, asking who liked my posts, why I wasn't posting pictures of us. Control issues, Vivienne noted. Good. That helps the narrative. They kept going. By the time Adrian left, it was past 1 a.m. Vivienne walked him to the elevator, barefoot still, exhaustion showing through the cracks in her composure. Thank you, Adrian said. Don't thank me yet. We're just getting started. The elevator arrived. Adrian stepped inside, turned back. For what it's worth, I meant what I said, about you being the best thing. Vivienne smiled, tired but real. I know. That's why I'm helping. The doors closed between them. That Adrian's lawyer called at 7 the next morning, voice tight with stress. We need to talk about the custody hearing. What about it? Your ex-wife's parents are filing for emergency guardianship. They're citing the harassment accusations as evidence of moral unfitness. Adrian sat up in bed, sleep evaporating. They can't do that. The investigation hasn't even started. They can file whatever they want. Whether it gets traction is another question. But Adrian, this is serious. If the judge thinks there's even a possibility, there isn't. I know that, you know that, but we need to prove it. Fast. His lawyer paused. I'm recommending we hire a crisis PR firm. Control the narrative before it controls us. How much? 200,000 retainer. Maybe more depending on how long this drags. Adrian thought about his daughter, asleep in his sister's guest room. Thought about the board meeting, Vivienne's apartment, the screenshots that were lies turned into truth by repetition. Do it, he said, whatever it costs. He spent the morning on phone calls. His lawyer, the PR firm, the forensic analyst who'd examined the screenshots. Each conversation confirmed what he already knew. Proving his innocence would take time. And time was the one thing he didn't have. At noon, his sister called. Lily's asking questions. What kind of questions? The kind where she heard her friend's mom talking. Adrian, you need to get ahead of this. I know. I'm coming to get her. I'll explain. He drove to his sister's house in Evanston, rehearsing what to say. How do you tell an 8-year-old that the world is lying about her father? That sometimes people make up stories because they're angry, because they want money, because they can? Lily met him at the door, backpack already on, face serious. Are you in trouble? Adrian knelt down to her eye level. Someone said some things about me that aren't true. I'm going to prove they're not true, but it might take a little while. What kind of things? Grown-up things, complicated things. But I need you to know that I would never hurt anyone on purpose. And the people who matter know that. Lily studied him with eyes too old for 8. Emma's mom said you're a bad person. The words hit harder than they should have. Adrian took a breath, kept his voice steady. Emma's mom doesn't know me. She's heard a story, but stories aren't always true. Are you going to lose your job? Maybe for a little while, but I'll get it back. What about me? Adrian pulled her into a hug, felt her small arms wrap around his neck. You're the most important thing in my life. Nothing is going to change that. Nothing. She nodded against his shoulder. Can we get ice cream? Yeah, baby. We can get ice cream. They drove to her favorite place, got chocolate chip and a waffle cone, sat at the outdoor tables even though it was too cold. Lily kicked her feet against the chair and talked about school, about her friend's birthday party, about the book she was reading. Normal 8-year-old things, like the world wasn't trying to destroy her father. Adrian's phone buzzed. Text from Vivienne. News is picking it up. Bloomberg just posted. You should know. He opened the article with one hand while Lily ate her ice cream. The headline made his stomach drop. Tech CEO Adrian Vale faces harassment allegations, steps down amid investigation. They'd gotten the basic facts right. Everything else was speculation dressed up as journalism. Who's texting you? Lily asked. A friend. What kind of friend? Adrian considered this question. What was Vivienne? Someone he'd met 6 weeks ago? Someone who'd analyzed forensic evidence and offered strategic advice and sat with him until midnight building a defense. Someone who'd seen him at his worst and hadn't walked away. A good one, he said finally. Do I know her? Not yet. Is she your girlfriend? It's complicated. Lily grinned, chocolate on her chin. That means yes. That means mind your ice cream. They finished eating. Adrian drove her back to his place, the penthouse that suddenly felt too big, too empty, too much like a monument to success that didn't matter anymore. Lily went to her room to do homework. Adrian stood in the kitchen and stared at his phone. Vivienne had sent another message. The PR firm is going to reach out. I gave them some background. Hope that's okay. He called instead of texting. You're supposed to be with your daughter, she answered. She's doing homework. I've got 10 minutes. Adrian leaned against the counter. You talked to the PR firm. I know the woman who runs it. Told her you're not guilty, the evidence is fabricated, and anyone who says otherwise is either lying or stupid. That's one way to frame it. It's the only way to frame it. Adrian, you can't be soft about this. Your ex wanted to destroy you. She made a mistake by getting sloppy with the screenshots. Now we destroy her back. That's not... He stopped. I don't want revenge. I just want this to end. Those are the same thing. Vivienne's voice softened slightly. Look, I get it. You're a good person. You don't want to hurt her even though she's trying to ruin your life. But she made a choice when she fabricated those messages. Now you make a choice. Fight back or let her win. What if fighting back makes it worse? It won't, trust me. Adrian closed his eyes. I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you can, and you will, because the alternative is losing your daughter, and that's not happening. Lily called from the other room. Dad, I need help with math. I've got to go, Adrian said. Call me later. We'll strategize. He hung up and went to help with fractions, grateful for problems that had clear answers. The next 2 weeks were brutal. The PR firm released statements. The forensic analysts presented their findings. His lawyer filed motions. The media cycle chewed through every detail, speculating on what really happened, who was lying, whether a billionaire could buy his way out of consequences. Through it all, Vivienne stayed present. Not constant, not suffocating, just there when Adrian needed her. She'd send articles with notes about how to respond. She'd call late at night when the anxiety got bad, talking him through worst-case scenarios until they didn't seem as terrible. She'd show up at his apartment with food when he forgot to eat, sitting at the kitchen counter while Lily did homework, somehow making herself part of the routine without asking permission. Lily noticed. I like her. Yeah? She's smart, and she doesn't talk to me like I'm stupid. Adrian looked at his daughter, then at Vivienne reading a financial report on the couch. She's pretty great. Are you going to marry her? Jesus, Lily. Emma's mom said you probably would, for the optics. She pronounced the word carefully, like she'd just learned it. Emma's mom needs to mind her business. So you're not? Adrian sat down next to her. I like Vivienne a lot, but marriage is complicated, and right now we're just friends. Friends who text all the time and have dinner and look at each other like that? Like what? Lily rolled her eyes. Like in movies, before they kiss. Adrian felt his face heat up. Finish your homework. She giggled and went back to her book, but the question stayed in his head. What was he doing with Vivienne? They'd crossed some line from strangers to something else, but he couldn't name it. She'd seen him fall apart and held space for it without trying to fix him. She'd fought for him when she had no reason to. She'd become part of his life so smoothly he hadn't noticed until she was essential. That night, after Lily went to bed, Adrian texted her, "Thank you for everything." Vivienne's response came fast. Stop thanking me. It's weird. Can't help it. Nobody's ever done this for me before. Done what? Stayed. The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, I'm not going anywhere. Adrian stared at those words until his eyes burned. But 3 weeks after the scandal broke, the investigation concluded. The forensic evidence was irrefutable. The screenshots had been digitally manipulated. Metadata proved creation dates that contradicted the supposed conversation timelines. And Adrian's ex-girlfriend's own lawyer quietly advised her to drop the accusations before criminal charges for fraud entered the conversation. She recanted everything in a written statement claiming misunderstanding and emotional distress. No apology, no accountability, just a legal document that technically cleared Adrian's name while implying maybe everyone had overreacted. The board called an emergency meeting. Adrian sat in the same conference room where they'd asked him to leave, watching the same people avoid eye contact for different reasons now. We'd like to formally reinstate you as CEO, Marcus said. Effective immediately. Generous, Adrian said flatly. The investigation cleared you. The evidence was fabricated. We're prepared to release a statement supporting your full return. And the market cap you lost? Gerald shifted in his seat. Recovering, slowly, but the fundamentals are strong. The fundamentals. Adrian leaned back. 3 weeks ago, you asked me to step down to protect the company. Now you want me back to protect the stock price. Which is it? It's both, Rebecca said quietly. We made a difficult decision based on the information we had. Now we're making a different decision based on new information. You threw me out because of screenshots you didn't bother to verify. We put you on leave, Marcus corrected. Paid leave, with full benefits. We protected you. You protected yourselves. Adrian stood. And here's what's going to happen. I'm coming back as CEO, but we're making changes. Starting with how this company handles accusations against leadership. We're implementing a proper investigation protocol. Third-party verification. No more knee-jerk reactions based on optics. That seems reasonable, Gerald said. I'm not finished. We're also implementing mandatory bias training for the board, because the next person who gets accused might not be a white male billionaire. They might not have the resources to prove their innocence. And I won't be part of a company that throws people away the moment it becomes convenient. Silence. Furthermore, Adrian continued, I want written apologies from each of you, not for the company, for me. Because what you did wasn't business. It was betrayal dressed up as strategy. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, nodded. Fair enough. Adrian left the meeting with his position restored and his respect for most of them permanently damaged. He'd won, technically, but winning felt like accounting for losses instead of celebrating victory. His phone rang before he made it to the elevator. Vivienne. How'd it go? She asked. I'm CEO again. And? And it feels empty. That's normal. You're allowed to be angry. I'm furious. They didn't even fight back, just rolled over and acted like nothing happened. Because they know they screwed up. Vivienne paused. You want to come over? Talk it through? Adrian checked his watch. I need to pick up Lily from school. Bring her. I'll order pizza. You don't have to. I want to. Come over. So he did. Picked up Lily, drove to Vivienne's building, rode the elevator to the 47th floor. His daughter bounced on her toes the whole way up, excited to see the cool apartment with the big windows. Vivienne answered the door in jeans and a sweater, hair down, smile genuine. Hey, trouble, Lily grinned. Hi, Vivienne. They ate pizza on the living room floor, Lily talking nonstop about her day while Vivienne listened like every detail mattered. Adrian watched them together, his daughter and this woman who'd walked into his life 6 weeks ago and somehow made herself indispensable. After dinner, Lily curled up on the couch with a book. Adrian and Vivienne sat by the windows, watching the sun set over Lake Michigan. Thank you, Adrian said quietly, for all of it. You're welcome. Vivienne didn't look at him. What happens now? I go back to work, rebuild what got damaged, try to figure out who I can trust. That's not what I meant. Adrian turned to her. Then what did you mean? She met his eyes finally. I meant us. What happens with us? The question hung between them, heavy with implications neither of them had named yet. I don't know, Adrian admitted. 6 weeks ago, you were a stranger my friend set me up with as a joke. Now you're the person I call when everything falls apart. That's not nothing. It's not everything either. No, but it's something. He hesitated. I told you I sent that text after our first date about you being the best thing I'd ever seen. I remember. I meant it then. I mean it more now. Adrian took a breath. I don't know what this is. I don't know if we're building towards something or if you're just being kind to a disaster of a human, but I want to find out. If you do. Vivienne studied him for a long moment. I don't do anything out of kindness. You should know that by now. Then why did you help me? Because you're worth it. She said it simply, like stating a fact. And because I wanted to. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now. Vivienne glanced at Lily, still reading on the couch. I'm not good at this. Relationships, vulnerability, all of it. I've spent years building walls because it was safer than letting people in. I know the feeling, but I'm tired of being safe. She looked back at him. So here's what I know. I like you. More than I should after 6 weeks. I like your daughter. I like who you are when you're not trying to be the perfect CEO. And I want to see where this goes if you're willing to be patient while I figure out how to do this without running. Adrian felt something loosen in his chest. I can be patient. Even though I'm difficult? Especially because you're difficult. Vivienne smiled, real and unguarded. Then I guess we're doing this. I guess we are. Lily looked up from her book. Are you guys done being mushy? Because I want to show Vivienne the drawing I made. Adrian laughed, the sound startling him with its genuineness. Yeah, baby, we're done. His daughter ran over with her sketchbook, and Vivienne made all the right impressed noises while Adrian sat back and watched his two favorite people bond over stick figure art. For the first time in 3 weeks, the future felt possible instead of terrifying. 2 months after the investigation cleared his name, Adrian woke up to find Vivienne standing in his kitchen at 6 in the morning, already dressed, scrolling through her phone with the kind of focus that meant trouble. "Morning," he said, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "When did you get here?" 20 minutes ago. Your doorman knows me now. Just let me up." She didn't look away from her screen. "We need to talk." Adrian poured coffee, noted the tension in her shoulders. "About what?" "About the fact that your ex just gave an interview to Vanity Fair." The mug stopped halfway to his mouth. "What?" Vivienne turned her phone around. The article was already live, complete with professionally shot photos and a headline designed for maximum damage. "The woman who accused Adrian Vale speaks out. I was pressured to recant." Adrian read the first paragraph and felt his stomach drop. His ex-girlfriend, whose name he'd deliberately avoided saying for weeks, had reinvented the entire narrative. According to her, the screenshots were real. The recantation was coerced. Adrian's lawyers had threatened her with criminal charges unless she backed down. She was the victim of a powerful man weaponizing the legal system. This is insane. Adrian set down his phone before he could throw it. "She admitted to fabricating evidence. We have her statement." "I know, but facts don't matter when the story's better without them." Vivienne leaned against the counter. "She's playing the vulnerable woman card. Claims she was scared, alone, going up against a billionaire. It's going to resonate. How is this legal? She lied. Provably. On record. Defamation's hard to prove, especially when she's couching everything in feelings and implications. I felt pressured. I was afraid. None of that's technically false, just strategically misleading." Adrian ran his hands through his hair. "So what do? We don't react. That's what she wants. She's broke, probably got paid for this interview, and now she's hoping you'll sue her so she can play martyr in court." Vivienne poured her own coffee, added milk with the precision of someone performing surgery. "Let your lawyer send a cease and desist. Make it clear any further false statements will result in legal action. Then ignore her. And if people believe her, some will, most won't. You've got the forensic evidence, the investigation results, and your reputation. She's got sympathy and a good photographer." Vivienne finally met his eyes. This isn't about winning the truth, it's about outlasting the lie. Lily wandered in, still in pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Why are you guys up so early?" "Work stuff," Adrian said automatically. "Want pancakes? Can Vivienne make them? Hers are better." "Traitor," Adrian nudged his daughter toward the table. "But yeah, she can." Vivienne moved around the kitchen like she'd done this 100 times. Maybe she had. She'd been spending more nights at the penthouse, staying over after late dinners, leaving clothes in the spare closet, becoming part of the routine so gradually that Adrian hadn't noticed until her absence felt wrong. They ate breakfast while Lily talked about her upcoming field trip. Adrian tried to focus on his daughter instead of the article blowing up his phone with notifications. Investors texting, board members calling, the PR firm requesting an emergency meeting. "I have to go into the office," he said after Lily left to get ready for school. "Deal with this before it spirals." "Want company?" Vivienne asked. "You've got your own empire to run." "I can delegate for a day." She started loading the dishwasher. "Besides, you shouldn't walk into that building alone. Not today." Adrian wanted to argue, prove he could handle this himself. But the truth was he didn't want to be alone, didn't want to face the stares and whispers without someone who believed him standing next to him. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I'd like the company." They dropped Lily at school together. His daughter hugged them both goodbye, and Adrian watched her run toward her friends without the weight of 3 weeks ago hanging over her. The custody hearing had been postponed indefinitely after the investigation cleared him. His former in-laws had backed down without apology, and Lily remained blissfully unaware of how close she'd come to being taken away. The drive to Adrian's office took 30 minutes through downtown traffic. Vivienne rode in the passenger seat, working through emails on her phone, occasionally reading him updates from her own company's quarterly reports. Normal conversation. Deliberate distraction. Adrian appreciated both. The lobby of his building felt different walking in together. Security nodded at them both. Employees did double takes seeing Vivienne Laurent, billionaire in her own right, known for hostile takeovers and ruthless negotiations, standing next to their reinstated CEO, looking like they belonged together. His assistant met them at the elevator. The board wants a meeting at 9. PR firm called 6 times, and you've got interview requests from Bloomberg, CNBC, and someone from the Times. Decline all interviews, Adrian said. Tell the board I'll meet at 10, not 9, and get me the PR team on the phone in 20 minutes. Yes, sir. His assistant hesitated. It's good to see you back. Thanks, Maria. They rode the elevator to the 43rd floor. Adrian's office looked exactly how he'd left it. Floor-to-ceiling windows, mahogany desk, leather chairs that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Vivienne walked straight to the windows, stared out at Chicago spreading beneath them. You okay? Adrian asked. Thinking. She turned. This article isn't random. Someone paid for it, coordinated it. Your ex doesn't have the resources to hire Vanity Fair's lawyers and fact-checkers on her own. You think someone's backing her? I think someone wants you distracted. Question is, who benefits from keeping you off balance? Adrian considered. Competitors, maybe? We're in the middle of 3 major acquisitions. If I'm too busy defending my reputation, deals fall through. Who knew about the acquisitions? Board members, senior leadership, our legal team. Any of them stand to profit if the deals collapse? Adrian thought about the people he'd trusted, the ones who'd asked him to step down, the ones who'd welcomed him back with careful smiles and hollow apologies. I don't know, maybe. Vivienne pulled out her phone. I'm calling someone. Don't ask who. She walked to the far side of the office, voice dropping too low to hear. Adrian watched her pace, gesturing with her free hand, that familiar intensity taking over. Whatever she was arranging, whoever she was calling, he'd learned not to question it. Vivienne had connections that didn't appear on organizational charts. She hung up, returned. I've got someone looking into your ex's financials, bank records, recent deposits, anything that shows outside funding. That's not exactly legal. Neither is coordinating a smear campaign. I'm just evening the odds. Vivienne sat in one of his chairs, crossed her legs. Now let's talk about the board meeting. They spent the next hour strategizing. Vivienne walked him through potential questions, hostile reactions, board members who might use this as ammunition to question his leadership. By the time the PR firm called, Adrian felt prepared instead of defensive. The call lasted 40 minutes. The PR team recommended a measured response, acknowledge the article, reaffirm the facts, avoid engaging directly. Standard crisis management. Adrian agreed to everything and hung up feeling like he'd accomplished nothing. At 10, he walked into the conference room alone. Vivienne had offered to join, but this felt like something he needed to do himself. The board sat in their usual positions, faces carefully neutral. Let's address this quickly, Marcus said. The Vanity Fair article is getting traction. Investors are asking questions. We need a unified response. The response is simple, Adrian said. The accusations were investigated and disproven. The accuser admitted to fabricating evidence. Now she's trying to rewrite history. We don't engage with liars. Calling her a liar seems inflammatory, Rebecca offered. She fabricated screenshots. What else would you call her? Gerald cleared his throat. The optics are challenging. A powerful man dismissing a woman's claims. A powerful man defending himself against proven lies, Adrian corrected. I'm not dismissing her because she's a woman. I'm dismissing her because she's lying. There's a difference. The public might not see it that way. Then the public needs better media literacy. Adrian leaned forward. Look, I get it. This is uncomfortable. But we're not going to legitimize false accusations by treating them as credible. The investigation happened. The evidence was clear. End of story. Marcus studied him. You seem angry. I am angry. Someone is actively trying to destroy my reputation, my company, and my ability to parent my daughter. And instead of asking who's behind it, we're sitting here debating optics. Do you know who's behind it? Rebecca asked. Not yet, but I will. The meeting ended without resolution. The board wanted caution. Adrian wanted war. They agreed to disagree and reconvene after the weekend. Vivienne waited in his office, reading a contract she'd pulled from her bag. How'd it go? About as well as expected. They want me to play nice. And you want to burn everything down. Just the things that deserve burning, Vivienne smiled. That's my favorite version of you. They ordered lunch at his desk, worked through the afternoon on separate projects, but together in the same space. Adrian handled emails and calls while Vivienne reviewed acquisition targets for her own portfolio. Occasionally, she'd read him something interesting, or he'd ask her opinion on a strategic decision, and the conversation would flow natural and easy. Around 4, her phone rang. She answered, listened, said, "Send it to me," and hung up. "That was fast," she said, opening her email. "What was?" "Your ex's bank records." Vivienne scrolled through the attachment. $50,000 deposited 3 days before the Vanity Fair article published. Came from a shell company registered in Delaware. Adrian moved to look over her shoulder. "Can you trace it?" "Already on it. The shell company has 2 listed officers, both lawyers. One of them works for—" She stopped. "Works for who?" Vivienne looked up at him. "Dalton Crest Ventures, your biggest competitor on the Morrison acquisition." The pieces clicked together with brutal clarity. Dalton Crest wanted the Morrison deal. Adrian's company had outbid them by $40 million. If Adrian looked unstable, distracted, the target company might reconsider, might go with the safer option. "They paid her to keep lying," Adrian said slowly. "Paid her to give that interview. Looks like it, though proving it in court would be difficult. Shell companies exist specifically to hide this kind of thing." Adrian walked back to his desk, brain moving fast. "We don't need court. We need leverage." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking Dalton Crest doesn't know we know, and I'm thinking we use that." Vivienne's smile turned sharp. "Now you're talking my language." They spent the rest of the afternoon building a plan. By the time Adrian's assistant reminded him about the dinner reservation he'd forgotten he'd made, they had a strategy that was probably unethical, definitely ruthless, and absolutely necessary. "I should go," Vivienne said, packing her laptop. "Let you have some father-daughter time." "Come with us," Adrian said. "Lily would like it." "You sure? I don't want to intrude." "You're not intruding. You're family." The word hung between them, neither of them quite ready to examine what it meant. "Okay," Vivienne said finally. "I'll come." They picked up Lily from after-school program and drove to the Italian place his daughter loved. Over pasta and too much bread, Lily told them about the drama in her 3rd grade class, about who liked who and which teacher was mean, and how her best friend had moved away, and she missed her. "Making new friends is hard," Lily said, twirling spaghetti on her fork. "What if nobody likes me?" "Then they're idiots," Vivienne said. Adrian kicked her under the table. "What Vivienne means is that the right people will like you. The rest don't matter." "But what if the right people don't find me?" "They will," Vivienne said, gentler this time. "You know how I know? Because you're interesting. You're funny. You ask good questions. Those are the things that matter." Lily considered this. "Did you have friends when you were my age?" "Not really. I was kind of weird." "You're still kind of weird." Adrian choked on his water. Vivienne laughed, real and surprised. "Yeah," she said. "I guess I am." After dinner, they walked through Millennium Park. Lily ran ahead, burning off energy, while Adrian and Vivienne followed at a slower pace. "She's great," Vivienne said. "You're doing a good job with her." "Most days I have no idea what I'm doing." "That's what makes you a good parent. The ones who think they know everything are usually screwing it up." Adrian glanced at her. "You ever think about having kids?" "Sometimes." "Then I remember I can barely keep a plan alive and decide maybe not." "You'd be good at it." "I'd be terrible at it. I'm impatient and controlling, and I don't do well with things I can't fix." "Sounds like every parent I know." Vivienne smiled. "Maybe." They walked in comfortable silence until Lily circled back, demanding piggyback rides. Adrian hoisted her up, ignoring his daughter's protests that he was too slow, while Vivienne walked beside them looking more relaxed than he'd ever seen her. Later, after they'd dropped Lily at home and settled her in bed, Adrian found Vivienne in his living room staring at the city lights. "You okay?" he asked. "Thinking about earlier, what you said about family." Adrian joined her at the window. "I shouldn't have said that. Too much. Too fast." "No, it was—" She paused. "It was nice. Terrifying, but nice." "Terrifying how?" "Because I want it to be true. I want to be part of this. Your life, Lily's life. But I don't know how to do that without destroying it." "You're not going to destroy anything. You don't know that. I have a track record of burning down things I care about. Adrian turned her to face him. So do I. Dead wife, failed relationships, ex-girlfriend trying to ruin my life. We're both disasters. Maybe that's why this works. Vivienne looked up at him, something vulnerable in her expression. I'm falling for you, fast and hard, and in ways that make me want to run. So don't run. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. You stay, I stay, we figure out the rest as we go. And when I screw this up, because I will, I'll push you away or sabotage it, or find some way to prove I don't deserve good things. Then I'll be here anyway, being screwed up together. Adrian brushed hair from her face. I'm not asking for perfect. I'm asking for real. Vivienne kissed him, not gentle, not tentative, but with the kind of certainty that comes from finally admitting what you want. Adrian pulled her closer, memorizing the feeling of her against him, the way she fit like she'd been designed for this specific purpose. When they broke apart, Vivienne rested her forehead against his. I'm still going to screw this up. Probably, but I'll screw it up too. We'll take turns. She laughed, the sound shaky but genuine. Deal. They moved to the couch, Vivienne curling against his side while Adrian pulled a blanket over both of them. Outside, Chicago glittered with a million lights. Inside, for the first time in months, Adrian felt something like peace. Tell me about your wife, Vivienne said quietly. Adrian stiffened. Why? Because she's part of your story. And if we're doing this for real, I want to know the whole story. He took a breath, organized thoughts he usually kept locked away. Her name was Caroline. We met in college, got married too young, had Lily when we weren't ready. She died 4 years ago. Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light. I'm sorry. Me too. Adrian stared at the ceiling. For a long time, I thought I died with her. Just kept going through the motions because Lily needed me. Work became a distraction. Relationships became transactions. I stopped being a person and became a function. What changed? You did. That first dinner when you called out the setup and sat down anyway. You looked at me like I was interesting instead of useful. I'd forgotten what that felt like. Vivienne shifted to see his face. I almost left that night. Why didn't you? Because you looked as trapped as I felt, and I figured if we were both going to be miserable, we might as well be miserable together. Adrian smiled. Best decision you ever made. Second best. First was having my team investigate your ex's finances. Always the romantic. Someone has to be practical in this relationship. Is that what this is? A relationship? Vivienne considered. Yeah, I think it is. They fell asleep on the couch, wrapped around each other, television playing something neither of them watched. When Adrian woke hours later, neck stiff and arm asleep, Vivienne was still there. Still real. Still choosing to stay. He carefully extracted himself, covered her with the blanket, and went to check on Lily. His daughter slept sprawled across her bed, stuffed animals scattered like casualties. Adrian pulled her blanket up, kissed her forehead, and allowed himself a moment to feel grateful. Back in the living room, Vivienne had woken up. What time is it? 3. Go back to sleep. Can't. Brain's awake now. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. Want to work on the Dalton Crest strategy? At 3 in the morning? Best time to scheme. Nobody expects you to be functional. They pulled out laptops and worked at the dining table, building a case that would expose Dalton Crest's involvement without directly accusing them of anything actionable. By sunrise, they had emails drafted, evidence compiled, and a plan that felt like justice wearing a business suit. This is going to destroy them, Vivienne said, reviewing the final documents. Good. They destroyed me first. You sure you want to do this? Once we send these, there's no going back. Adrian thought about his daughter sleeping down the hall, about the board members who'd abandoned him, about his ex-girlfriend taking money to keep lying, about Vivienne sitting across from him at sunrise, helping him fight battles she'd never asked to be part of. I'm sure, he said. Send it. Vivienne hit send on the email to Morrison's CEO. The evidence package would arrive in his inbox in seconds, proof that Dalton Crest had paid Adrian's accuser, manipulated media coverage, and attempted to sabotage a competitor through character assassination. Now what? Vivienne asked. Now we wait, and hope Morrison values ethics more than convenience. They didn't have to wait long. By noon, Morrison's CEO had forwarded the evidence to his board. By 3, Dalton Crest's stock had dropped 8%. By close of business, their CEO had resigned amid an emergency investigation. Adrian's phone rang off the hook. Investors wanting updates. Media requesting comment. The board demanding explanations. He ignored most of it, focused instead on the single email from Morrison's CEO. Deal's back on. Let's talk terms. Vivienne read the message over his shoulder. You did it. We did it. Semantics. But she smiled. How does it feel? Like I can breathe again. That night, they celebrated with Lily at her favorite pizza place. His daughter ate 3 slices and fell asleep in the car on the way home. Adrian carried her upstairs, tucked her in, and returned to find Vivienne in his kitchen, opening a bottle of wine. To winning, she said, pouring 2 glasses. To fighting dirty when necessary, Adrian countered. They clinked glasses. The wine tasted expensive and unnecessary and perfect. I'm proud of you, Vivienne said, for not backing down. I had good help. You had great help, let's be accurate. Adrian laughed, pulled her close. Stay tonight, for real this time, not on the couch. Vivienne looked up at him, something shifting in her expression. You sure? Very sure. What about Lily? She already thinks you're my girlfriend. Might as well commit to the bit. Romantic as always. But she stayed, fell asleep in his bed, curled against his side, breathing steady and even. Adrian lay awake longer, watching her sleep, allowing himself to believe this could work, that damaged people could build something whole, that second chances existed outside fairy tales. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Text from an unknown number. Congratulations on the Morrison deal. Enjoy it while it lasts. Adrian stared at the message, ice forming in his chest. He showed it to Vivienne, who'd woken at the sound. She read it twice. Forward it to your lawyer. And security. You think it's a real threat? I think someone's angry they lost. Whether they're dangerous or just bitter, we'll find out. Adrian forwarded the message, added context, requested increased security. Then he deleted it from his phone and pulled Vivienne back against him. We're not doing this tonight, he said. Tonight we sleep. Bossy. You love it. Unfortunately, yes. They fell asleep again, and if Adrian's dreams turned dark with unnamed threats, he didn't mention it in the morning. The threatening text turned out to be the first of many. Over the next week, Adrian received 6 more messages from different numbers. Nothing specific enough to act on, just vague implications that something bad was coming. His security team traced the numbers to burner phones purchased with cash. Dead ends, all of them. This feels personal, Adrian's head of security said during their 3rd meeting in 5 days. Someone who knows your schedule, your movements. They sent one while you were at Lily's school pickup, another when you were at dinner with Miss Laurent. So they're watching me. Or they have access to your location data. Phone, car, credit cards. Any of those could be compromised. Adrian rubbed his temples. What do you recommend? New phone, new credit cards. Vary your routine. And consider private security for your daughter. The thought of Lily needing bodyguards made him sick. She's 8 years old. I know, but if someone's escalating, do it discreetly. I don't want her scared. Vivienne took the news about as well as expected, which was to say she immediately started making calls to people Adrian didn't ask about. Within 2 days, she'd arranged additional security for her own building, had her car checked for tracking devices, and hired a cybersecurity firm to audit both their digital footprints. This is insane, Adrian said, watching her coordinate with yet another specialist. We're living like we're under siege. We are under siege. Difference is now we're fighting back intelligently instead of reactively. She ended her call, turned to him. The cyber team found something. Your email's been compromised for 3 weeks. Someone's been reading everything. Adrian's blood went cold. Everything? Every message, every document, every calendar invite. They've had full access to your professional and personal accounts. How is that possible? We have firewalls, encryption. Doesn't matter if someone on the inside gave them access. Vivienne pulled up a report on her tablet. The breach originated from an IP address inside your company. Someone with administrative privileges created a backdoor. Who? Still working on that. But Adrian, they've seen everything. Your strategy documents, acquisition plans, private conversations. They know what you're planning before you execute. Adrian thought about the Morrison deal, the Dalton Crest takedown, every confidential discussion he'd had over email for the past month. We need to find who did this. Already on it, but in the meantime, we operate assuming everything's compromised. No sensitive information over email or phone. Face-to-face conversations only, and not in your office. They started meeting in random locations, coffee shops, parks. Once in the back of Vivienne's car while it drove in circles through downtown. The paranoia felt excessive until it didn't, until Adrian caught himself checking over his shoulder and wondering who was listening. The board noticed his distraction. Marcus cornered him after a meeting, concern genuine for once. You seem off. Everything okay? Fine, just dealing with some security issues. Related to the threats? Adrian hadn't told the board about the messages. How do you know about those? Marcus hesitated. Rebecca mentioned it, said you'd increase security protocols. Rebecca doesn't know about the threats. Then maybe I'm misremembering. But Marcus looked uncomfortable, like he'd been caught saying something he shouldn't know. Adrian filed that away, added Marcus to the list of people he couldn't trust. The list was getting longer every day. At home, Lily sensed something was wrong. She'd always been perceptive, reading his moods better than most adults. Over dinner one night, she set down her fork and studied him. Are you and Vivienne fighting? She asked. No, baby. Why would you think that? Because you both look worried all the time, and you keep whispering. Adrian exchanged a glance with Vivienne, who'd become a permanent fixture at family dinners. We're not fighting, just dealing with some work stress. Is someone trying to hurt you again? The question hit harder than it should have. Adrian tried to figure out how much truth an 8-year-old could handle. Someone's being a nuisance, but we're handling it. Is it the same person who lied about you before? We don't know yet. Lily thought about this. I don't like that people are mean to you. Me either, sweetheart, but sometimes people do mean things. What matters is how we respond. Vivienne says the best response is usually revenge. Adrian shot Vivienne a look. She had the grace to appear mildly apologetic. Vivienne has a unique perspective on conflict resolution, he said carefully, but maybe let's not lead with revenge, okay? What should I lead with? Evidence. Facts. Making sure you understand the situation before you react. Lily nodded seriously, like he'd imparted ancient wisdom. That makes sense. Can I have more chicken? Crisis averted. Vivienne cleared dishes while Adrian helped Lily with homework, the domestic routine almost normal except for the security guards stationed outside and the fact that Adrian kept checking his phone for new threats. Later, after Lily went to bed, Vivienne found him in the home office staring at financial reports he wasn't actually reading. You need to sleep, she said. Can't. Too much going on. Adrian. She took the papers from his hands. You're spiraling. I can see it happening. Someone's reading my emails, threatening me, watching my movements. Spiraling seems appropriate. Spiraling doesn't help. It's what they want. You distracted, paranoid, making mistakes. So what do I do? Pretend everything's fine? No. You delegate. Trust the people you've hired to handle this. The security team's good. The cyber forensics team is better. Let them do their jobs while you focus on the parts only you can handle. Adrian wanted to argue but couldn't find the energy. When did you get so good at crisis management? Years of practice. I've had 3 hostile takeover attempts, 2 stalkers, and 1 very determined ex who tried to tank my company out of spite. You learn to compartmentalize. That's a depressing resume. That's wealth without family protection. You build your own security or you get destroyed. Vivienne sat on the edge of his desk. But here's what I learned. The people trying to break you want you isolated. They want you paranoid and pushing away anyone who could help. Don't give them that. I'm not pushing you away. Not yet. But you're thinking about it. I can tell. You're doing the math, wondering if I'm safer without you, if Lily's safer, if everyone would be better off if you just handled this alone. She was right. The thought had crossed his mind more than once. I don't want you collateral damage, Adrian admitted. Then stop treating me like I'm fragile. I'm a billionaire who survived worse than threatening texts and email hacks. I'm here because I choose to be. Stop trying to protect me from my own decisions. Adrian pulled her closer, rested his forehead against her stomach. I'm scared. I know, me too, but we're scared together, which is better than scared alone. Is it though? Yes. Because when you spiral, I pull you back. And when I want to burn everything down, you remind me to be strategic. That's how this works. Adrian lifted his head. You're terrifyingly rational. Someone has to be. She kissed him, soft and brief. Now come to bed. Tomorrow we hunt down whoever's doing this. They slept tangled together, Adrian's nightmares kept at bay by Vivienne's solid presence beside him. When his phone buzzed at 4 in the morning, she woke first, grabbed it before he could. Another text, she said, reading. Different number, same vague bullshit. You should have stayed down. Let me see. She held the phone out of reach. No, because you'll obsess over it for 3 hours. I'm forwarding it to your security team and then we're going back to sleep. Vivienne, nope. Sleep now, revenge later. That's the rule. Adrian wanted to argue but recognized the futility. Instead, he wrapped his arms around her waist and pulled her back down. You're very bossy when you're tired. I'm bossy all the time. You're just noticing now because you're sleep deprived. Fair point. They dozed until Lily knocked on the door at 7, announcing she needed help finding her science project. Adrian stumbled out of bed, helped his daughter locate the volcano model she'd built last week, made breakfast while Vivienne showered. Normal morning routine with an undercurrent of dread he couldn't shake. His phone rang during breakfast. The head of his cyber forensics team, calling earlier than expected. We found your leak, she said without preamble. Gerald Chen, your CFO. Adrian felt the floor drop out. You're sure? Positive. He created the back door 6 weeks ago, right after you came back from leave. Been feeding information to an external party ever since. We've got logs, timestamps, everything. Who's he sending it to? Still tracking that. But Mr. Vale, there's more. He's been skimming funds. Small amounts over 2 years totaling about $3 million, hidden in acquisition costs and operating expenses. Adrian sat down before his legs could give out. Gerald, who'd worked with him for 6 years, who'd sat in that conference room and voted to put him on leave, who'd welcomed him back with apologies that suddenly felt rehearsed. Send me everything, Adrian said, and don't tell anyone else. I need to handle this carefully. He hung up, aware of Vivienne and Lily both staring at him. What happened? Vivienne asked. Not now. He glanced at Lily. After school drop-off. The drive to Lily's school was quiet. His daughter chattered about her day, while Adrian's mind raced through implications. If Gerald was the leak, then the board knew. Had to know. Which meant the people he trusted most had betrayed him systematically. After dropping Lily off, he told Vivienne everything. She listened without interrupting, face growing progressively colder. So your CFO has been stealing from you, reading your emails, and probably feeding information to your competitors, she summarized. For 2 years. Looks like it. And the board? Don't know yet. Could be he's working alone. Could be they're all complicit. Vivienne pulled out her phone. I'm calling my lawyer. We need to approach this exactly right or he walks. I want him arrested. I know. But if we move too fast, he destroys evidence. We need to build an airtight case first. She dialed, put the phone on speaker. Trust me. We do this my way. He doesn't just get arrested. He loses everything. They spent the morning coordinating with lawyers, forensic accountants, and the cybersecurity team. By noon, they had a strategy. By evening, they had enough evidence to bury Gerald 6 times over. We present this to the board tomorrow, Vivienne's lawyer said over video conference. Give them a chance to cooperate. If they're complicit, they'll try to cover it up. If they're innocent, they'll help you build the case. And if they try to cover it up? Adrian asked. Then we go to the SEC and the FBI and watch them all go down. Adrian felt something settle in his chest. Not quite peace, but close. For the first time in weeks, he had a clear target. That night, he couldn't sleep. Kept running through scenarios, trying to figure out who knew what. Marcus had mentioned the threats before Adrian told anyone. Rebecca had been too quick to suggest his leave. Even his assistant Maria had access to his calendar, his emails, his entire professional life. He got out of bed at 2, went to the living room. Vivienne found him there 20 minutes later, staring at nothing. Can't sleep either? She asked. Keep thinking about all the times I trusted him. Gerald was at my wedding. He sent flowers when Caroline died. He helped me interview nannies for Lily, and the whole time he was stealing from me. Vivienne sat beside him. People are good at compartmentalizing. He probably justified it, told himself he earned it, deserved it. You'd never notice. $3 million. How do you not notice $3 million? Because you trusted him to handle the numbers. That's what CFOs do. They count money while you focus on strategy. She leaned against him. This isn't your fault. Feels like it is. It's not. You hired someone you thought was competent and loyal. He turned out to be competent and corrupt. That's on him, not you. Adrian wanted to believe her. What if the whole board's involved? Then we burn it all down and build something better. You make it sound simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. You decide what you're willing to lose, what you're willing to fight for, and then you fight. What if I'm not strong enough? Vivienne turned to face him. You survived your wife dying. You survived false accusations. You survived your own company turning on you. You're strong enough. You just forgot for a minute. Adrian kissed her, desperate and grateful and terrified all at once. I don't know what I'd do without you. Good thing you'll never have to find out. They went back to bed, held each other until sunrise, didn't talk about the battle waiting for them in a few hours. The board meeting started at 9. Adrian walked in with a box of evidence and Vivienne beside him, her presence a silent threat that none of them could miss. We need to discuss something urgent, Adrian said, setting the box on the table. Gerald Chen has been embezzling company funds for 2 years. He's also been feeding confidential information to external parties. I have proof. The room went silent. Gerald's face stayed carefully neutral, but Adrian saw the calculation in his eyes. That's a serious accusation, Marcus said slowly. What kind of proof? Adrian opened the box, distributed folders to each board member. Bank records, email logs, forensic analysis of our financial systems. It's all there. Gerald flipped through his folder, and Adrian watched him realize the game was over. This is a misunderstanding. Really? Which part? The $3 million you stole or the confidential emails you forwarded to Dalton Crest? I have no idea what you're talking about. The IP logs say different. So do the bank transfers. So does the testimony from the cybersecurity firm you used to create the back door. Adrian leaned forward. You want to keep lying? That's fine. But I've already contacted the FBI. They'll be here in about 2 hours to arrest you for wire fraud, embezzlement, and corporate espionage. Gerald's composure cracked. You can't prove I forwarded anything. Actually, I can. Timestamps match. Recipient email addresses trace back to Dalton Crest executives. You weren't even careful about it. Adrian turned to the rest of the board. Question is whether any of you knew. Rebecca looked genuinely shocked. Marcus appeared thoughtful, like he was running calculations. The others ranged from confused to angry. I knew nothing about this, Rebecca said firmly. If these allegations are true, Gerald needs to be removed immediately. They're true, Vivienne said, speaking for the first time. My forensic team verified everything. Gerald's been stealing and leaking for 2 years. The only question is whether he acted alone or had help. I acted alone, Gerald said quickly. Too quickly. Nobody else knew. Why should we believe you? Marcus asked. Because I'm the one going to prison. Why would I protect anyone else? It was a fair point. Adrian studied Gerald, trying to see the man he'd trusted beneath the criminal staring back at him. Why did you do it? Gerald laughed, bitter and sharp. You really want to know? Because I was tired. Tired of watching you make millions while I managed the numbers that made it possible. Tired of you getting credit for strategies I developed. Tired of being the invisible one. So you stole from the company. I took what I earned, and when that wasn't enough, I took payment for information. Dalton Crest paid well for your acquisition plans, $20,000 per tip. I made $500,000 just feeding them your strategy. And the threats? Vivienne asked. The texts? The surveillance? Was that you? Gerald shook his head. No idea what you're talking about. I leaked information. I didn't threaten anyone. Adrian believed him, which meant someone else was behind the threats. Someone still out there, still watching. Doesn't matter, Marcus said, standing. Gerald, you're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you out. We'll be pressing charges for everything Adrian mentioned and probably more once our lawyers finish reviewing. Gerald stood, accepted his fate with more dignity than he deserved. At the door, he turned back. For what it's worth, Adrian, I never hated you. I just wanted what you had. You could have asked for a raise. Would you have given me millions? No, but I wouldn't have given you prison either. Gerald left. Security took him downstairs, probably to a conference room where lawyers and FBI agents were waiting. The board sat in stunned silence. We need to discuss damage control, Rebecca said finally. If this gets out, it's getting out, Adrian interrupted. I'm not hiding this. Gerald stole from shareholders, compromised our competitive position, and violated about 15 different laws. We're reporting it, cooperating fully with investigators, and being transparent about what happened. That could tank our stock price. Or it shows we take fraud seriously and handle it appropriately. I'm not covering this up to protect our quarterly numbers. Marcus nodded slowly. Adrian's right. We report it, we cooperate, we move forward. Anything else makes us complicit. The rest of the meeting focused on logistics, press statements, legal strategy, identifying which deals might have been compromised by Gerald's leaks. By the time they finished, it was past noon and Adrian felt hollowed out. Vivienne waited for him outside the conference room. How do you feel? Exhausted, betrayed, vindicated. All of it at once. That's normal. You just took down someone you trusted. It's supposed to hurt. They walked to his office, closed the door. Adrian sank into his chair while Vivienne perched on his desk. The threats aren't connected to Gerald, she said, which means someone else is still out there. I know, but at least now we know it's not internal. Has to be external. Unless Gerald was working with someone on the board and they're covering. Adrian groaned. I can't do this right now. Can we solve one crisis before tackling the next? Sure. Take the afternoon off. Spend time with Lily. Let the lawyers handle Gerald. Vivienne smoothed his hair back. You did good today. Held it together, made the right calls. I'm proud of you. Thanks for being here. Where else would I be? They picked up Lily together, took her for ice cream, pretended everything was normal. His daughter talked about her day, oblivious to the fact that her father had just destroyed a man's career and sent him to prison. Adrian was grateful for her innocence, her ability to exist in a world where the worst thing was a failed math quiz. That night, after Lily went to bed, Adrian's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, assuming it was another threat, but something made him pick up. Mr. Vale? A woman's voice, young and nervous. My name is Sophie Chen, Gerald's daughter. Adrian's stomach dropped. Sophie, I'm sorry about... Don't. Please. I know what he did. He told me before they arrested him. She took a shaky breath. I'm calling because there's something you should know. My dad wasn't working alone with the threats. What do you mean? The emails, the surveillance? That was someone else. Someone who approached him months ago offered money for information about you. Dad took it because he needed the cash for my mom's medical bills, but he didn't know they were planning to hurt you. He thought it was just corporate espionage. Who approached him? I don't know. He never met them in person. Everything was through encrypted messages, but he kept records, saved everything just in case. I can send them to you if you want. Yes, send them to my lawyer. Adrian gave her the contact information. Sophie, I'm sorry you're in the middle of this. Me too, but Mr. Vale? Be careful. Whoever's doing this, they're dangerous. My dad was scared of them, really scared, and my dad's not scared of anything. She hung up. Adrian stood frozen, phone still pressed to his ear. Vivienne appeared in the doorway. What was that about? He told her. Watched her expression shift from surprise to calculation to something harder. We need those records tonight, she said, before whoever's behind this realizes Gerald kept copies. Sophie's sending them to my lawyer. Not fast enough. Give me her number. Adrian did. Vivienne made a call, spoke in rapid-fire sentences about secure transfers and encryption, hung up, made another call. Within 20 minutes, she'd arranged for Sophie to upload the files to a secure server accessed by Vivienne's own cyber team. Now we wait, Vivienne said, and hope whoever's threatening you doesn't know about Sophie. They waited. Adrian paced while Vivienne worked through emails, both of them tense with anticipation. At 11, her phone chimed. We've got the files, she said, opening her laptop. Let's see what Gerald was hiding. The records were extensive. Months of encrypted messages, payment confirmations, detailed instructions about what information to collect. Adrian read through them, recognizing his own schedule, his movements, details about Lily's school and his daily routine. "This is stalking," he said. "Professional, organized stalking. And expensive. Look at the payments. 200,000 over 6 months. Someone's bankrolling this operation." Vivienne scrolled further, stopped. "Adrian, look at this." He leaned over her shoulder, read the message she'd highlighted. It was dated 2 days ago, sent after Gerald's arrest. "The CFO's been compromised. Assume all information from that source is dead. Move to phase 2. "Phase 2, Adrian repeated. "What the hell is phase 2? They didn't have to wait long to find out. Phase 2 arrived at 3 in the morning in the form of flashing lights and pounding on Adrian's door. He woke to chaos. Vivienne was already up, looking out the window at the police cars flooding the street below. Adrian's security guard stood in the hallway, phone pressed to his ear, face grim. "What's happening?" Adrian asked, pulling on a shirt. "Police have a warrant," the guard said. "They're coming up." "A warrant for what?" Before anyone could answer, someone knocked. Not the polite tap of a visitor, but the authoritative bang of law enforcement, who knew they had the right to be there. Adrian opened the door to find 6 officers and a detective holding paperwork. The detective spoke first, voice flat and professional. "Adrian Vale, we have a warrant to search these premises for evidence related to charges of corporate fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud." The words didn't make sense. Adrian stared at the warrant, reading the same sentences 3 times. "This is a mistake. I'm the victim here. My CFO was arrested yesterday for embezzling. We're aware of Mr. Chen's arrest. This warrant is based on evidence suggesting you were complicit in his activities." The detective stepped inside without waiting for permission. "We need you to step aside while we conduct the search." Vivienne appeared beside Adrian, already on her phone. "Don't say anything else, not one word. I'm calling your lawyer." The next 2 hours were surreal. Officers moved through Adrian's home, photographing rooms, boxing up documents, confiscating his laptop and phone. One of them knocked on Lily's door, woke her up to search her bedroom. Adrian heard his daughter crying, asking what was happening, and had to be physically restrained by Vivienne from interfering. "Let them work," she hissed in his ear. "Getting arrested for obstruction doesn't help anyone." "They're scaring my daughter." "I know, but fighting them makes it worse. Your lawyer's on the way. Let him handle this." Adrian's lawyer arrived 20 minutes later, reviewed the warrant, and pulled the detective aside for a conversation Adrian couldn't hear. When they finished, the lawyer looked shaken. "They have bank records showing deposits into an account in your name," he said quietly. $2 million over 6 months, coming from the same sources Gerald Chen was receiving payment from. "That's impossible. I don't have any account like that." "Someone does, and it has your social security number, your mother's maiden name, everything needed to make it look legitimate." Vivienne grabbed the warrant, read through it. "This is a setup. Phase 2. They're framing him. That may be true, but proving it won't happen tonight." The lawyer watched officers carry boxes out of the apartment. "Mr. Vale, they're going to ask you to come to the station for questioning. You have the right to refuse, but refusing looks bad. I recommend we go voluntarily. Cooperate fully, and let me do the talking." Adrian looked at Lily, being comforted by one of the female officers who at least had the decency to look sympathetic. His daughter's face was blotchy from crying, confusion, and fear written in every line of her small body. "I need to stay with her," Adrian said. "I'll stay with her." Vivienne's voice was steel. "You go clear this up. I'll make sure she's okay." "Vivienne, go, now, before they decide to arrest you here in front of your daughter." Adrian kissed Lily's forehead, whispered that everything would be okay, hated himself for lying. Then he followed his lawyer out to a waiting police car, aware of neighbors watching from windows, cameras probably recording, his life being destroyed in real time. The police station smelled like coffee and desperation. They put Adrian in an interview room, made him wait 40 minutes before the detective finally appeared with a recorder and a folder thick with accusations. "Let's start simple," the detective said. "Do you know Gerald Chen? He was my CFO. I fired him yesterday after discovering he'd been embezzling company funds. And you had no knowledge of his activities before yesterday?" "None." "That's interesting, because we have records showing payments into your account corresponding with the same timeline as Mr. Chen's illegal activities. I don't have an account like that." You're saying someone opened a fraudulent account in your name? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. The detective smiled like he'd been waiting for that answer. Mr. Vale, we've verified the account. It was opened 3 years ago with your signature, your identifying information, and has been receiving deposits ever since. Are you claiming you've been the victim of identity theft for 3 years and never noticed? Adrian's lawyer leaned forward. My client is claiming someone manufactured evidence to frame him, which, given the recent revelations about his CFO, seems highly probable. Or, the detective countered, Mr. Vale and Mr. Chen were working together, and now that Mr. Chen's been caught, Mr. Vale is trying to distance himself by claiming fraud. That's insane, Adrian said. Why would I report Gerald if I was working with him? To create exactly this defense. The innocent businessman betrayed by his corrupt employee. Except the evidence suggests you were partners, not victims. They went in circles for 2 hours. The detective presented bank records, emails allegedly from Adrian authorizing transfers, documentation that looked damning if you didn't know it was fabricated. Adrian's lawyer objected to everything, pointed out inconsistencies, demanded forensic verification. Finally, at 6 in the morning, they let Adrian go. No charges filed yet, but the detective made it clear this was just the beginning. Don't leave town, he said. We'll be in touch. Adrian walked out into dawn light, exhausted and furious. His lawyer drove him home in silence, both of them too tired to strategize. Vivienne met him at the door, Lily asleep on the couch behind her. How bad? Bad. They think I was working with Gerald. Have bank records showing deposits I never authorized. I know. I've been digging while you were gone. Vivienne pulled him into the kitchen, showed him her laptop. The account was opened using your information, but the signature's forged. I had a handwriting analyst look at it remotely. They're willing to testify it's not yours. That helps, but it's not enough. Whoever set this up knew exactly what they were doing, which is why we need to find them before the police do, because the police think they already found them. Vivienne closed her laptop. I've got people working on tracing the account's origin. Should have something by this afternoon. Adrian sank into a chair. This is what they wanted. Gerald was just the opening move. Now they've got me tied up in a criminal investigation, distracted, vulnerable. But why? What's the end game? I don't know. But I'm going to find out. Lily stirred on the couch, woke up confused and scared. Adrian went to her, held her while she cried, promised things he wasn't sure he could deliver. Eventually she calmed enough to eat breakfast, though she kept looking at him like he might disappear. Am I going to school today? She asked. Adrian glanced at Vivienne, who nodded slightly. Maintaining routine was important. Showing fear was worse. Yeah, baby, you're going to school. Are the police going to come back? I don't know. Maybe. But if they do, they're just doing their job. Nobody's in trouble. You looked like you were in trouble. Adrian couldn't lie to her. Someone's trying to make it seem like I did bad things, but I didn't, and we're going to prove it. Like before? With the lady who lied? Exactly like before. Lily nodded, trusting him completely in a way that made Adrian's chest hurt. They got her ready for school, packed her lunch, walked her to the car with security following close behind. At drop-off, other parents stared. Word traveled fast in private school circles. Ignore them, Vivienne said as they drove away. They don't matter. They're judging me. Let them. You know the truth. That's what matters. Back at the penthouse, Adrian's lawyer called with updates. The police were moving fast, building a case for criminal conspiracy. The DA wanted this high profile, wanted to make an example. Adrian Vale, Billionaire CEO, brought down by the same greed he'd built his fortune on. It's a good narrative, the lawyer admitted. Rich man corrupted by his own success. The public will eat it up. So what do? We get ahead of it. Press conference, full transparency. You tell your story before they tell theirs. Adrian hated the idea of performing for cameras, but Vivienne agreed it was necessary. They scheduled it for that afternoon, giving the PR team 3 hours to prepare statements. While Adrian rehearsed answers to hostile questions, Vivienne's forensic team worked on tracing the fraudulent account. By noon, they had a lead. The account had been opened by someone using Adrian's credentials, but the IP address traced back to a location in New York, a specific building in Manhattan that housed several investment firms. One of them is Davidson Strategic Capital, Vivienne said, reading the report. Ring any bells? Adrian thought. They made a run at acquiring my company 2 years ago. Hostile takeover attempt. We fought them off, but it cost us time and money. Motive? Maybe, but why wait 2 years for revenge? Because revenge is a dish best served cold? Vivienne pulled up information on Davidson Strategic. Their CEO is Martin Davidson. Old money, East Coast establishment, reputation for being ruthless. He doesn't lose often. When he does, he makes sure the winner suffers. You think he's behind this? I think it's worth investigating, and I think we need to do it before your press conference so you have something concrete to point to. They had 2 hours. Vivienne made calls while Adrian finished prep with the PR team. By the time they left for the press conference, Vivienne had confirmed that Davidson Strategic had made large cash withdrawals in the same time frame as the payments to Gerald Chen and the deposits into Adrian's fraudulent account. It's not proof, she said in the car, but it's a connection, enough to create reasonable doubt. The press conference was held in a hotel conference room downtown, packed with journalists and cameras. Adrian stood at a podium, Vivienne beside him, and told the truth. He detailed Gerald's betrayal, the fabricated bank account, the evidence of a coordinated campaign to destroy his reputation. Someone is spending considerable resources to frame me for crimes I didn't commit, Adrian said, reading from prepared remarks. And while I can't prove who yet, I can tell you this. I will cooperate fully with law enforcement. I will provide any evidence they request, and I will clear my name. The questions came fast and hostile. Mr. Vale, why should we believe you when your own CFO has confessed to crimes you allegedly participated in? Gerald Chen confessed to embezzlement and corporate espionage. He explicitly stated I had no knowledge of his activities. But the bank records show a fraudulent account opened with forged documents. I have forensic experts who will testify the signature isn't mine. Isn't it convenient that evidence against you is always fabricated? Adrian felt his temper flare but kept his voice level. What's convenient is that every accusation against me falls apart under scrutiny. At some point, you have to ask yourself why that keeps happening. The conference lasted 40 minutes. By the end, Adrian was exhausted, and the journalists looked unsatisfied, which his PR team said was actually good. Satisfied journalists meant they'd gotten the narrative they wanted. Unsatisfied meant Adrian had disrupted their story. On the drive back, Vivienne got a call from her investigator. She listened, face growing progressively darker, hung up without saying goodbye. What? Adrian asked. Davidson Strategic just issued a statement. They're denying any involvement, claiming they barely remember the takeover attempt, and suggesting you're deflecting blame to avoid accountability. Of course they are. But here's the interesting part. The statement was issued 20 minutes before you mentioned them at the press conference. Adrian processed that. So they knew I was going to accuse them, which means they're either monitoring you very closely or someone at the press conference tipped them off. Or both. Or both, Vivienne agreed grimly. They returned to the penthouse to find Adrian's sister waiting with Lily, both of them watching television. The press conference was already being dissected on cable news, pundits arguing about whether Adrian was a victim or a master manipulator. Turn it off, Adrian said. His sister did, turned to face him. Is this really happening again? Worse this time, but we'll handle it. After his sister left, Adrian sat with Lily and tried to explain in 8-year-old terms why Daddy was on TV being called a criminal. His daughter listened with that serious expression she got when processing adult problems she shouldn't have to understand. Are you going to jail? She asked finally. No, baby. I didn't do anything wrong. But they said, they're wrong. Sometimes people make mistakes. Sometimes they believe lies, but the truth always comes out. When? I don't know, but soon. Lily thought about this, then hugged him tight. I believe you, Daddy. Adrian held his daughter and tried not to cry. That night, after Lily went to bed, Adrian and Vivienne sat in the dark living room and planned their next move. They had evidence of Davidson Strategic's involvement, but nothing concrete enough to take to police. They had forensic proof the bank account was fraudulent, but no way to prove who created it. We're missing something, Vivienne said. Some connection we're not seeing. Like what? I don't know, but this is too coordinated, too expensive, too personal. Davidson Strategic might be funding it, but someone else is driving it. Someone with intimate knowledge of your life. Adrian thought about everyone who knew his schedule, his habits, his vulnerabilities. The list was depressingly long. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Adrian Vale. A woman's voice, older, cultured. My name is Patricia Davidson, Martin's mother. Adrian put the phone on speaker so Vivienne could hear. Mrs. Davidson. To what do I owe the pleasure? I'm calling because my son is an idiot, and I don't appreciate watching him destroy people for sport. She spoke with the casual authority of old money and zero patience for nonsense. He's been obsessed with you since the takeover failed. Talks about you at family dinners, monitors your company's performance, cheers when you have setbacks. It's embarrassing. So you're confirming he's behind the frame job? I'm confirming he paid a great deal of money to make your life difficult. Whether that constitutes a frame job, I'll leave to lawyers. But Mr. Vale, I'm calling to warn you. Martin doesn't know when to stop. This won't end with a criminal investigation. He'll keep pushing until you're destroyed completely. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm 83 years old, and I'm tired of my son behaving like a child. Also because you have a daughter. I saw her picture in the news. She looks like a sweet girl who doesn't deserve to lose her father because my son can't handle rejection. Vivienne leaned forward. Mrs. Davidson, would you be willing to testify to your son's obsession? Absolutely not. I'm not sending my own son to prison, but I am willing to encourage him to back off, cut his losses, move on to other pursuits. And if he won't listen, Adrian asked, then I suppose you'll have to destroy him yourself, but at least you'll know what you're up against. She paused. Be careful, Mr. Vale. Martin has resources and very few moral boundaries. The only thing he fears is losing his reputation. Use that however you see fit. She hung up. Adrian stared at the phone, trying to process what had just happened. His mother just gave us the playbook, Vivienne said slowly. Martin Davidson fears losing his reputation more than anything else. So we threaten his reputation. We do more than threaten. We destroy it so completely he has no choice but to back down. Adrian met her eyes. What are you thinking? I'm thinking we go after Davidson Strategic the same way they came after you. Leak information about their questionable business practices. Highlight every shady deal, every ethical violation, every corner they've cut. Make Martin Davidson toxic. That's playing dirty. He started it. We're finishing it. Adrian thought about Lily sleeping down the hall, about the police investigation, the bank account, the manufactured evidence designed to send him to prison, about Martin Davidson, obsessed and relentless, who wouldn't stop until Adrian was destroyed. Do it, he said, whatever it takes. Vivienne made calls. Within hours, she'd assembled a team of investigators, journalists, and analysts who specialized in corporate takedowns. They worked through the night, digging through Davidson Strategic's history, finding connections to fraudulent investments, insider trading rumors, clients who'd been burned by aggressive tactics. By morning, they had enough material to sink a fleet. Vivienne reviewed it with Adrian over coffee, both of them running on no sleep and spite. We leak this to financial media, she said. Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times. Make it impossible to ignore. Davidson's reputation tanks, his clients start asking questions, and suddenly he's too busy defending himself to focus on you. What about proof he's behind my frame job? We don't need proof. We just need him distracted and defensive. Once he's fighting for his own survival, the campaign against you dies naturally. Adrian nodded. Do it. The leaks started that afternoon. First, a Bloomberg article about questionable investment practices at Davidson Strategic. Then a Wall Street Journal expose on insider trading allegations. By evening, financial Twitter was ablaze with speculation about Martin Davidson's ethics. Davidson Strategic stock dropped 12% in one day. Adrian's lawyer called with good news. The DA is getting cold feet about the criminal case. Turns out the bank that held your fraudulent account has a history of poor identity verification. Their records show the account was opened remotely, no in-person confirmation. A decent defense attorney could shred that in court. So they're dropping charges? Not yet, but they're slowing down, asking for more time to investigate. That's good for us. Adrian allowed himself to feel something like hope. That night, his phone rang again. Martin Davidson this time, voice tight with fury. You son of a bitch! You're destroying my company. Funny. I was going to say the same thing about you. I want a meeting. Tomorrow. Neutral ground. We end this before we both lose everything. Adrian looked at Vivienne, who nodded. Fine. Tomorrow at 2. Pick a location and send it to my lawyer. Come alone. Not happening. My attorney will be there. And probably a few other interested parties. Martin hung up without agreeing. But an hour later, Adrian's lawyer received details for a meeting at a private club in downtown Chicago. Neutral ground, as promised. Adrian didn't sleep that night. Kept running through scenarios, trying to anticipate what Martin would offer. What leverage remained. Vivienne stayed with him, working through her own projects, occasionally reading him updates on the media coverage destroying Davidson's strategic. His board's calling for his resignation, she said around 3 in the morning. Shareholders are threatening a vote of no confidence. Good. You think he'll actually back down? I think he's cornered. Cornered people do unpredictable things. The meeting was scheduled for 2 the next afternoon, which gave Adrian 12 hours to prepare. He spent them with lawyers, reviewing what could be said legally, what constituted blackmail, where the line was between negotiation and extortion. At 1:30, he dressed in his best suit, kissed Lily goodbye, and drove downtown with Vivienne and his attorney. The private club was exactly what he expected. Old money, older furniture, portraits of dead white men on the walls. Martin Davidson waited in a private room, flanked by 2 lawyers who looked expensive and miserable. He was older than Adrian expected, mid-50s with silver hair and the kind of face that looked good on magazine covers. Right now he looked furious. Let's make this quick, Martin said. You've destroyed $3 billion in market value over the past 2 days. I want it to stop. Then stop trying to frame me for crimes I didn't commit. I don't know what you're talking about. Adrian's lawyer opened a folder. We have documentation linking payments from Davidson Strategic to Gerald Chen. We have testimony from Chen's daughter about encrypted communications. We have your mother's statement about your obsession with Mr. Vale. Martin's face went white. My mother wouldn't... She did. Called personally to warn Mr. Vale that you were dangerous and obsessed. That alone is enough to start a criminal investigation into witness tampering and fraud. You're bluffing. Vivienne leaned forward. Try us. We've already destroyed your reputation. Destroying your freedom is just the next step. Martin looked at his lawyers, who both seemed very interested in their notepads. He turned back to Adrian with something like grudging respect. What do you want? I want you to admit you fabricated evidence against me. I want you to provide documentation proving the bank account was created by your operatives. I want you to go to the DA and withdraw any statements that implicate me in Gerald Chen's crimes. That's impossible. I'd be admitting to fraud. Yes, you would. And in exchange, we don't pursue criminal charges. We kill the media coverage. We let you salvage what's left of your company and disappear quietly. That's blackmail. That's business. You taught me that 2 years ago when you tried to take my company. Martin stared at him for a long moment. If I do this, it ends. No more leaks, no more attacks. If you do this and leave me alone, yes, it ends. And if I don't, then we go to war. And I promise you, I've got more resources and less to lose than you do. Martin looked at his lawyers again. One of them nodded slightly. A decision made without words. Fine, Martin said. I'll need 48 hours to compile the documentation. You have 24. After that, everything we have goes to the FBI. They shook hands like civilized men instead of enemies. Signed agreements drafted by lawyers who charged hourly rates that could fund small countries, and parted ways with mutual understanding that this truce was fragile and temporary. In the car afterward, Adrian let himself collapse against the seat. You did it, Vivienne said. You actually did it. We did it. I couldn't have done any of this without you. I know, but you're welcome to keep saying it. Adrian laughed, surprised the sound still existed in him. What happens now? Now we wait for Martin to deliver. Then we clear your name, close the criminal investigation, and figure out how to rebuild from this mess. Sounds exhausting. It will be, but we'll do it together. 24 hours later, Martin Davidson delivered. Documentation proving the bank account was fraudulent. Statements recanting his accusations, evidence that would exonerate Adrian completely. His lawyers handed it over without comment, and Adrian's team forwarded everything to the DA. Within a week, the investigation was dropped. The DA issued a statement about insufficient evidence, careful not to admit they'd been manipulated, but also making it clear Adrian was no longer a person of interest. The media moved on to other scandals. Adrian's company recovered most of its lost market value. Martin Davidson resigned from Davidson Strategic and disappeared from public view, though Vivienne's sources said he'd moved to London to escape the scrutiny. Life slowly returned to something resembling normal. Adrian went back to running his company, Lily went back to school without police raids, and Vivienne became such a permanent fixture in the penthouse that her own apartment gathered dust. One evening, 3 weeks after the charges were dropped, Adrian found her in the kitchen making dinner while Lily did homework at the table. The scene was so domestic, so normal, that it made his chest ache. "What?" Vivienne asked, catching him staring. "Nothing. Just thinking about how 6 months ago you were a stranger I'd been set up with as a joke. And now I'm the woman who helped you take down your enemies and occasionally makes pasta. Truly, we've come far." Lily looked up from her homework. "Are you guys going to get married?" "Jesus, Lily," Adrian said. "What?" "Emma's mom says you should. She says Vivienne is the best thing that ever happened to you. Emma's mom needs better hobbies than gossiping about my love life." "So you're not getting married?" Adrian looked at Vivienne, who looked back with an expression he couldn't quite read. "That's a conversation for another time," he said carefully. But that night, after Lily went to bed, Vivienne brought it up again. "Your daughter asks good questions," she said. "She gets that from her mother." "Are you avoiding the subject?" "Maybe. Are you?" Vivienne set down her wine glass. 6 months ago, I thought marriage was something other people did. Then I met you, and you were a disaster wrapped in expensive suits, and somehow that disaster became the most important thing in my life. That's remarkably romantic for someone who claims to hate sentiment. I'm trying here. Don't make it weird." She took a breath. "I don't know if I'm ready for marriage, but I know I'm ready for this. For you, for Lily, for figuring out what comes next together. Is that enough?" Adrian pulled her close. "That's more than enough." They stayed like that, wrapped around each other, while Chicago glittered outside the windows. And for the first time in months, Adrian felt something he'd almost forgotten existed. Peace. Peace lasted exactly 3 weeks before Adrian realized he was terrible at it. He'd spent so long fighting that the absence of crisis felt like waiting for an ambush. Every morning he woke up expecting new threats, new accusations, new battles. Instead he got coffee with Vivienne, breakfast with Lily, meetings that were just meetings instead of damage control sessions. "You're doing it again," Vivienne said one morning, watching him stare at his phone like it might explode. "Doing what?" "Looking for problems that don't exist." Adrian set the phone down. "I'm not looking for problems. You've checked your emails 6 times in the last 10 minutes. Either you're expecting something catastrophic, or you've developed a nervous tic. Maybe both." Lily walked in, already dressed for school, backpack slung over one shoulder. "Are we still going to the museum this weekend?" "Yeah, baby, we're going." "Can Vivienne come?" "If she wants to spend her Saturday looking at dinosaurs." "I always want to spend my Saturday looking at dinosaurs," Vivienne said seriously. "It's my favorite activity." Lily grinned. "You're weird." "So I've been told." After dropping Lily at school, Adrian drove to the office for the first time in weeks without security monitoring his every move. The building felt different without the weight of scandal hanging over it. Employees smiled at him in hallways. His assistant brought coffee without the careful sympathy she'd worn for months. The board meeting at 10 was almost boring. Budget reviews, acquisition updates, strategic planning. Normal business conducted by normal people who'd stopped treating him like he might detonate. Marcus pulled him aside afterward. "You seem better, more settled." "I feel better. Turns out not being investigated for fraud does wonders for your mental health." "About that." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "I owe you an apology, several actually, for pushing you to take leave, for not digging deeper into Gerald's activities, for doubting you when I should have trusted my instincts." Adrian had imagined this conversation going differently, angrier, more accusatory. Instead, he just felt tired. "You were protecting the company," he said. "I get it. I was protecting myself. There's a difference." Marcus met his eyes. "You could have destroyed all of us, leaked that we forced you out, made us look complicit. Instead, you came back and acted like nothing happened. Not nothing. I made you implement investigation protocols. Bare minimum decency, and you know it. You should have burned us down. Vivienne wanted to, spent 3 days planning exactly how to do maximum damage. Why didn't you let her? Adrian thought about that. Because burning everything down is easy. Building something better is hard. And I was tired of easy. Marcus nodded slowly. For what it's worth, you're a better man than I am. I'm really not. I'm just a disaster who got lucky. After Marcus left, Adrian sat in his office and tried to work through the stack of contracts requiring his signature. His concentration lasted 20 minutes before his mind wandered back to Vivienne's question from weeks ago. The one about marriage that Lily had resurrected over pasta. He pulled out his phone, texted Vivienne. What are you doing for lunch? Her response came immediately. Hostile takeover. Why? Need to talk. Important. How important? Marriage important. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, give me 2 hours. Meet at our place. Their place was a small Italian restaurant in River North where they'd had their 3rd date, back when neither of them was willing to admit this was more than 2 people killing time. The owner recognized them now, always held a corner table no matter how busy. Vivienne arrived looking like she'd run from her office, hair slightly messy, lipstick faded. She slid into the booth across from him, ordered wine without looking at the menu. Okay, she said. Talk. Adrian had rehearsed this conversation in his head for 3 weeks. Every version ended with him sounding like an idiot. He decided to skip the rehearsal and just be honest. I don't know how to do this, he said. The peace part. The part where nothing's actively falling apart, and I'm just supposed to exist like a normal person. I keep waiting for the next disaster, and when it doesn't come, I don't know what to do with myself. Vivienne took a long drink of wine. Welcome to recovery. It's awful. Is it always this uncomfortable? Usually worse. You're lucky you've got distractions like work and parenting. I just have work and the vague sense that something terrible is about to happen. That's bleak. That's realistic. People like us don't get happy endings, Adrian. We get functional endings where we're slightly less damaged than we were before. I don't believe that. You should. Look at our track record. Dead spouse, failed relationships, enemies who tried to destroy us. That's not Disney princess material. Adrian leaned forward. What if I want the Disney ending anyway? Vivienne set down her glass carefully. What are you asking me? I'm asking if you want to get married. Not someday, not eventually. Soon. Actually soon. She stared at him like he'd started speaking another language. You're serious. Completely serious. I love you. Lily loves you. You're already living in my apartment half the week. We might as well make it official. That's possibly the least romantic proposal I've ever heard. You want romantic? Fine. You're the best thing I've ever seen. You saved my life when you had no reason to. You stayed when everyone else left. You make my daughter laugh, and you make me want to be better than I am. I don't know what comes next, but I know I want you there for all of it. Adrian paused. Is that romantic enough? Vivienne's eyes were wet. I hate you for making me cry in public. Is that a yes? It's a maybe. Ask me again when you have a ring and I'm not wearing yesterday's makeup. I don't care about the ring or the makeup. I do. If we're doing this, we're doing it right, not some impulsive decision made over wine at lunch. Adrian wanted to argue, but recognized the deflection for what it was. Vivienne was scared, probably more scared than she'd been during any of the fights they'd survived together. Okay, he said. I'll ask again. With a ring and better planning. Thank you. They ate lunch and talked about safer things. Work, Lily's upcoming school play, the vacation they'd vaguely discussed taking once things settled down. Normal conversation that felt anything but normal, given what Adrian had just asked. Afterward, walking back to their cars, Vivienne grabbed his hand. I do love you, she said quietly, in case that wasn't clear. It was clear. And I do want this. I'm just terrified I'll destroy it. Then we'll be terrified together. Seems appropriate given our history. Vivienne laughed, the sound shaky but genuine. Yeah, I guess it does. Adrian spent the next week ring shopping with a discretion that would have made CIA operatives proud. He visited 6 jewelers, rejected everything that looked like he was trying too hard or not trying enough, and finally found something simple and elegant that felt like Vivienne. The hard part was figuring out when to propose. Not during a crisis, obviously, but also not during some manufactured romantic moment that would feel forced. He wanted it real, organic, the way everything between them had been. The opportunity came on a Tuesday night in the middle of dinner. Lily was talking about her friend's upcoming birthday party. Vivienne was half listening while reviewing something on her phone. And Adrian realized this was it. This ordinary moment with the 2 people he loved most. Nothing dramatic or staged, just life happening in real time. "Vivienne," he said, interrupting his daughter mid-sentence. She looked up. "Yeah?" "Marry me." The phone slipped from her hand. Lily gasped, suddenly very alert. "What?" Vivienne said. Adrian pulled out the ring box, set it on the table between the pasta and garlic bread. "Marry me. Not because it's romantic or expected, because I want to wake up next to you for the rest of my life. Because I want to make this official. Because you're already family, and I want everyone else to know it too." Lily bounced in her seat. "Say yes! Say yes!" "Let her answer," Adrian said, not taking his eyes off Vivienne. Vivienne opened the box, stared at the ring like it might bite her. "This is insane." "Probably. We've known each other less than a year." "I know. I'm difficult and controlling, and I don't know how to be someone's wife. I don't know how to be someone's husband. We'll figure it out." She looked at Lily, who was practically vibrating with excitement, then back at Adrian. "If I say yes, you're stuck with me. All the baggage, all the damage, all of it. I'm counting on it. I'm serious. I'm not going to suddenly become easy or agreeable or domestic. I would be disappointed if you did." Vivienne laughed, the sound almost hysterical. "Okay, yes, fine. I'll marry you," Lily screamed. Adrian felt something unlock in his chest that he hadn't realized was still closed. Vivienne put on the ring with shaking hands, stared at it like she couldn't believe it was real. "This is crazy," she said. "Best kind of crazy. I'm going to screw this up." "Probably. So will I. That's marriage." She kissed him across the table, clumsy and imperfect and exactly right. Lily demanded to see the ring, tried it on herself, declared it beautiful and perfect, and exactly what she would have picked. That night, after Lily finally went to sleep still talking about weddings and dresses and flowers, Adrian and Vivienne sat on the couch in comfortable silence. "I can't believe you proposed during dinner," Vivienne said. "You told me to do it right." "That felt right. It was right. I'm just surprised you didn't overthink it into oblivion." "I did. For a week. Then I realized the perfect moment was never going to happen, so I made my own." Vivienne leaned against him. "When should we do this? The actual wedding?" "Whenever you want. Tomorrow, next year, whenever." "You'd marry me tomorrow?" "I'd marry you tonight if it was legal." "That's insane. So you've mentioned, multiple times." She laughed. "Okay, not tomorrow, but soon. I don't want a big production. Just us, Lily, maybe a few people who actually matter." Sounds perfect. They planned it over the next month. Small ceremony, immediate family only, held in the penthouse with Chicago spread out beneath them. Vivienne wore ivory instead of white. Lily wore purple because she insisted. And Adrian wore the same suit he'd worn to their first date because Vivienne said it was lucky. The ceremony lasted 15 minutes. No lengthy vows, no dramatic declarations. Just 2 people promising to stay, to fight, to be honest even when it hurt. Adrian's sister cried. Vivienne's brother looked uncomfortable but genuine. Lily served as flower girl and ring bearer simultaneously, took her duties very seriously. When the officiant said Adrian could kiss his bride, Vivienne grabbed his face and kissed him hard enough to make their small audience laugh. It wasn't graceful or romantic in the traditional sense. It was real, which was better. The reception was dinner in the same room, catered by the Italian place where Adrian had proposed. They ate too much, drank expensive wine, and Lily fell asleep on the couch before dessert arrived. Later, after everyone left and Lily was tucked into bed, Adrian found Vivienne on the balcony staring at the city. "Having second thoughts?" he asked, joining her. "Wondering when the other shoe drops. We're happy, stable, married. Something terrible has to happen now. That's how this works. Or maybe we just get to be happy. Novel concept. For people like us, extremely novel. She turned to face him. I'm serious, though. We've survived attacks, investigations, systematic attempts to destroy us. What happens when there's no crisis to unite against? We find new things to fight about. Money, work-life balance, whose turn it is to pick up Lily from school. That sounds boring. That sounds normal. And I think we've earned normal. Vivienne considered this. I don't know how to do normal. Me either. But we'll figure it out. Adrian pulled her close. Together. That's kind of the whole point of marriage. I thought the point was tax benefits and joint health care. That too. They stood on the balcony while the city hummed below them, two people who'd survived enough damage to destroy most relationships before they started. Adrian thought about the blind date 6 months ago, the setup meant as a joke, the woman who'd sat down anyway and changed everything. 7 words had started this. She is the best thing I've ever seen. At the time, he'd meant it superficially. Now he understood it completely. The weeks after the wedding settled into something resembling routine. Vivienne moved into the penthouse officially, consolidated her life with Adrian's in ways that were sometimes smooth and sometimes combustible. They argued about closet space, about whose turn it was to check Lily's homework, about whether the thermostat should be set at 72 or 68 degrees. Normal marriage problems, the kind that didn't threaten to destroy careers or result in criminal investigations. Adrian went back to running his company with renewed focus. The Morrison acquisition closed successfully. 2 more deals followed. The board stopped treating him like he might implode and started treating him like the CEO he'd always been. Vivienne expanded her own empire, took on 3 new consulting projects, and somehow still managed to be home for dinner most nights. She and Lily developed their own relationship independent of Adrian, inside jokes and shopping trips and conversations he wasn't part of. Watching them together made him understand what family was supposed to feel like. 3 months after the wedding, Adrian's ex-girlfriend gave another interview, this time to a podcast with 6 listeners, claiming she'd been silenced and intimidated, and the truth would eventually come out. Vivienne wanted to destroy her. Adrian talked her down. She's not worth it, he said. Nobody believes her anymore. Let her scream into the void. She's spreading lies about you. She's been spreading lies about me for months. It hasn't stuck yet. What if it does? Then we deal with it, together, like everything else. Vivienne reluctantly agreed, though she spent the next week monitoring social media for any uptick in the interview's traction. There wasn't any. Turns out people got bored of narratives that kept falling apart. The scandal with Gerald Chen concluded with a guilty plea and a 7-year sentence. Adrian attended the sentencing, sat in the back of the courtroom, and felt nothing watching his former CFO being led away in handcuffs. Afterward, Sophie Chen approached him in the hallway. "I'm sorry," she said, "for what my dad did. For all of it. You don't need to apologize for him." "I know, but I wanted you to know I'm sorry anyway." She paused. "The records I gave you, did they help?" "They did, more than you know. Thank you for that." Sophie nodded, young and sad and carrying guilt that wasn't hers. Adrian wanted to tell her it would get easier, that her father's choices weren't her responsibility. Instead, he just said he hoped things got better, wished her luck, and walked away. Martin Davidson resurfaced briefly in the news 6 months later, involved in some failed venture in London that cost investors millions. Adrian read the article with detached interest, felt no satisfaction in his enemy's continued downfall. Revenge had stopped mattering somewhere between the wedding and now. Life continued. Lily turned 9, started 4th grade, joined the soccer team despite having no athletic ability whatsoever. Adrian and Vivienne attended every game, cheered too loudly, and pretended not to notice when their daughter spent most of the time picking grass instead of playing. One evening in late fall, almost a year after the blind date that started everything, Adrian came home to find Vivienne and Lily building a blanket fort in the living room. "What's happening here?" he asked. "Mom's teaching me architecture," Lily said without thinking, then froze. "I mean, Vivienne, sorry." Vivienne's face did something complicated. "It's okay. You can call me that if you want." "Really? Really? I mean, I'm married to your dad. Legally, that makes me some kind of parental figure. Might as well use the title." Lily launched herself at Vivienne, hugging her with the full-body enthusiasm only 9-year-olds possessed. Adrian watched his wife hold his daughter and felt something settle completely. That night, after Lily went to bed, he found Vivienne in the kitchen stress baking, which she only did when emotions got too big to process normally. "You okay?" he asked. "She called me Mom." "I heard. You handled it well." "I panicked. Did you see me panic?" "A little, but you recovered." Vivienne mixed batter with unnecessary violence. "I don't know how to be someone's mother. I'm barely competent as a wife. You're extremely competent as a wife, possibly overqualified. I'm serious. What if I screw her up? What if I'm terrible at this?" Adrian took the mixing bowl away, set it aside, pulled Vivienne close. "You won't be terrible. You'll be exactly what she needs. Same way you've been exactly what I needed. That's different. You're an adult who can tell me when I'm being unreasonable. Lily tells you when you're being unreasonable all the time. Remember last week when you tried to explain compound interest during breakfast? That was educational. That was excessive, and she told you so, very directly." Vivienne laughed despite herself. "She did say I was being extra, which I think is 9-year-old for insufferable. See? She'll keep you honest, just like I do." They stood in the kitchen holding each other while cookies baked and Chicago settled into night. Adrian thought about how far they'd come from that first dinner, two strangers thrown together as entertainment who'd decided to build something real instead. "I love you," Vivienne said quietly. "I don't say it enough. You show it constantly. That counts more. Still, I love you, and Lily, and this weird life we've built." It is pretty weird. Best kind of weird. The next morning, Lily came into the kitchen and announced she'd decided Vivienne was now Mom, and that was final. Nobody got to argue. Vivienne cried into her coffee while trying to pretend she wasn't, and Lily patted her hand with the matter-of-fact sympathy of someone who'd seen adults cry before. "It's okay," Lily said seriously. "Crying is healthy. You taught me that." "I did teach you that. So it's fine that you're crying. Even though it's kind of weird." Adrian hid his smile behind his own coffee mug. Work continued. Life continued. The crises that had defined their relationship faded into stories they told at dinner parties. Dramatic enough to be entertaining, but distant enough not to hurt anymore. A year and a half after the wedding, Vivienne's company went public. The IPO was successful beyond projections, making her independently wealthy enough that billionaire became an understatement. She celebrated by donating a substantial portion to organizations that helped victims of corporate fraud and women recovering from financial abuse. "Because someone should benefit from all that damage," she explained when Adrian asked why. He understood completely. 2 years in, they bought a house outside the city. Not to replace the penthouse, but to supplement it, somewhere Lily could have a backyard and a dog, and the kind of childhood Adrian had always imagined for her. The dog was Vivienne's idea. A rescue mutt named Bruce, who had anxiety issues and only 3 legs, but loved Lily with the kind of devotion that made even Adrian emotional. 3 years in, they were just another family. Complicated, damaged, held together by choice as much as love. They fought about stupid things and made up quickly. They forgot anniversaries and remembered them spectacularly. They existed in the messy middle ground between perfect and broken, which turned out to be exactly where real life happened. One night, lying in bed in the house outside the city with Bruce snoring at their feet and Lily asleep down the hall, Adrian turned to Vivienne. "Do you remember what I texted my friends after our first date? The 7 words that started this whole disaster? How could I forget? You were the best thing I'd ever seen. I meant it then. I mean it more now." Vivienne rolled to face him. "Why are you being sentimental at midnight?" "Because I'm grateful. For you, for Lily, for this life we built out of spite and stubbornness." That's one way to describe our origin story. It's accurate, though. We survived things that should have destroyed us. Came out better on the other side. Better is generous. Less damaged, maybe. I'll take less damaged. Still feels like winning. Vivienne kissed him, soft and slow. "I guess we did win. Against some pretty terrible odds. So what do we do now? Now that we've won? We live. We raise Lily. We build our empires. We fight when we need to and apologize when we should. We exist." She paused. "And we stay. No matter what. That's the important part." Staying. Staying. Because leaving is easy. Any disaster can walk away. It takes real strength to stay and build something better. Adrian thought about everyone who'd left during the worst times. His board, his friends, people who'd claimed loyalty until loyalty became inconvenient. Then he thought about Vivienne, who'd seen him at his absolute worst and planted herself like a tree, immovable and stubborn, and exactly what he needed. "Thank you," he said, "for staying. Thank you for being worth it." They fell asleep tangled together, Bruce eventually migrating to sprawl across both of them, the house quiet except for familiar sounds of home. Morning came with Lily jumping on their bed demanding pancakes, Bruce barking at nothing, Vivienne groaning about early risers being unnatural. Normal chaos that Adrian had learned to love more than silence. Over breakfast, Lily announced she wanted to write a story about her family for school. "What kind of story?" Adrian asked. "A true one, about how you and Mom met and fell in love even though people were mean to you." "That's a long story, baby." "So I'll write a long story. My teacher says good stories have conflict and resolution. You guys have both." Vivienne looked at Adrian over Lily's head, something soft in her expression. "What are you going to title it?" "I don't know yet. Maybe the best thing he ever saw. That's what Dad said about you." "He told you that?" "He tells everyone that. It's embarrassing." Adrian felt his face heat. "I don't tell everyone." "You told Aunt Rachel and Marcus and the guy who delivers our groceries." "The grocery guy asked how we met. I was being polite." Vivienne laughed. "You're such a sap. You married the sap. That's on you." Lily finished her pancakes, ran off to start her story, leaving Adrian and Vivienne alone in the kitchen. Sunlight streamed through windows that looked out on their backyard, where Bruce was currently destroying a plant they'd just planted. "We should probably stop him," Vivienne said, making no move to get up. "Probably. In a minute." They sat in comfortable silence, drinking coffee, watching their dog commit botanical murder. 3 years ago, Adrian had been drowning in scandal and isolation. Now he had this: a wife who challenged him, a daughter who adored them both, a 3-legged dog with zero respect for landscaping. "I'm happy," he said, surprised by the realization. "Actually, genuinely happy. When did that happen?" "Somewhere between the fraud charges and the wedding. Maybe during. It's hard to pinpoint exactly." "Are you happy?" Vivienne considered the question seriously. "I'm content," which for someone like me is basically euphoria. "So, yes, I'm happy." "Good, because you're stuck with me now. Forever and ever and all that romantic nonsense." "Exactly." They finished their coffee, rescued what remained of the plant, spent the afternoon doing absolutely nothing important. Lily worked on her story, reading passages aloud that made both of them cringe with how accurately she captured their early relationship. And then the lady who lied tried to make everyone think Dad was bad, but Mom knew the truth because she's smart and doesn't believe lies, Lily read. So they fought back together and won. The end. "That's not the end," Vivienne said. "What about after we won?" "That's the boring part. You just got married and lived in a house. Stories need conflict. Married life has plenty of conflict, trust me. Not the interesting kind. Not like fighting bad guys." Adrian met Vivienne's eyes across the room. She was smiling, that rare, unguarded expression she only wore around family. "She's right," Vivienne said. "The interesting part is behind us." "I don't know. I think the interesting part is ongoing, just different." "Different how?" "Different like figuring out how to be human instead of constantly in crisis mode. That's interesting in its own way." Vivienne thought about that. "I guess so. Less dramatic, though. I've had enough drama to last a lifetime. I'll take boring." Later that night, after Lily went to bed and Bruce had been sufficiently walked and fed, Adrian found himself back on the balcony of the penthouse. They'd kept it even after buying the house, used it for work weeks when commuting to the suburbs felt impractical. The city spread below exactly like it had the first time Vivienne had stood here with him, back when they were still figuring out what this was. So much had changed, so much had stayed exactly the same. Vivienne joined him, wrapped in a blanket against the autumn chill. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "That first night you brought me here, after the board meeting. I was falling apart and you just showed up. I showed up with whiskey and a plan to destroy your enemies. Seemed appropriate." It was perfect. You were perfect. I was calculated and strategic, not the same thing. To me it was. Adrian pulled her close. I spent years thinking I had to handle everything alone, that asking for help was weakness. Then you showed up and proved me wrong. I'm very good at proving people wrong. It's a gift. I'm serious. You changed how I see everything. Strength, vulnerability, what matters. Before you, I thought success meant never showing weakness. Now I know it means being honest even when it's hard. Vivienne was quiet for a moment. You changed me too. Made me believe people could stay. That I didn't have to push everyone away before they left on their own. We fixed each other. We didn't fix anything. We're both still disasters, just disasters who function better together. I'll take it. They stood on the balcony while Chicago hummed and glittered, two people who'd survived enough to know happiness when they found it. Adrian thought about the 7 words that started everything, realized they were still true but insufficient now. Vivienne wasn't just the best thing he'd ever seen. She was the best thing he'd ever chosen. And she'd chosen him back, repeatedly, when leaving would have been easier. That mattered more than romance or perfect moments or fairy tale endings. The choosing, the staying, the daily decision to build something real instead of running when it got hard. They went inside eventually, fell asleep in the bed they'd shared for 3 years, woke up to another ordinary morning that felt extraordinary simply because it was theirs. Life continued. Work, family, the endless small decisions that added up to a life. Adrian stopped checking his phone for threats, stopped waiting for the next crisis, learned to exist in the peaceful spaces between disasters. Vivienne stopped treating happiness like it would disappear if she acknowledged it, started believing in permanence, slowly let down the last of her walls. Lily grew up surrounded by 2 people who loved her enough to stay, to fight for each other, to build something stable even when the world tried to tear it apart. And sometimes, late at night when the city was quiet and Lily was asleep and everything was still, Adrian would look at his wife and remember that first dinner. The setup, the joke, the woman who'd sat down anyway and changed absolutely everything. 7 words. She is the best thing I've ever seen. True then, true now, true always. Not because she was perfect, not because their relationship was easy, but because she'd looked at him, really looked, past the money and the performance and the careful control, and decided he was worth the effort. And then she'd proven it, over and over. Through scandals and investigations and threats and fear, she'd stayed. That was the story Lily would tell. Not about the crisis or the victory, but about 2 broken people who chose each other and built something whole. About staying when leaving was easier. About trust earned through action instead of words. About love that wasn't magic or destiny, but decision. The daily choice to show up, to fight when necessary, to be honest even when it hurt. That was the story worth telling, and it wasn't finished yet.